You, my friends, are just in time to Take a Shift, a revolutionary podcast hosted weekly by yours truly, Belinda and Catherine, that will literally alter the trajectory of your life.
We're on a mission to listen, ignite, and transform, challenging ourselves and you, dear listener, to journey deeper and get uncomfortable. Discover what lies beyond those layers of fear, judgment, smallness, and everything else that's been getting in your way up until now. Choose to step into new possibilities and courageously wake up to the life you know you were meant to be living.
So buckle up, Buttercup, summon your curiosity, and together, let's take a shift. Greetings, dear listeners. We're back. This is Catherine Hart, and I'm with my dearest friend, Belinda Zilberman, and we are here for Take a Shift. And one of the things we're shifting on today, being the new year, big 2020 upon us, which we're so excited about. We're going to talk today about one word that can change your life. This is a book that Belinda and I have been following for a couple of years now. This book was written in 1999 by Dan Britton, Jimmy Page, and John Gordon. John Gordon wrote The Energy Bus, which was one of my fun books. And simply put, this is one word that sticks with you throughout the year. So instead of the New Year's resolutions that what we found historically come and go within a couple of weeks in January of each year, we started implementing the power of one word for all 365 days. We're going to talk a little bit about that and where we've been with our one word. And Belinda, you want to come in and talk a little bit more about it and say hello?
Hello. Yeah. It's an interesting practice. I was introduced to it by a friend when I was participating in a weekly group where we met every Monday at 8 a.m. for numerous years. And one of the years we met, first week of January, this idea of creating a word was presented to us in this group. And the sense that I got from it then was, sometimes as Catherine was saying, we get so sort of bombarded and overwhelmed and easily distracted with our goals and so many things that we set out. The one word really felt like a grounding point. It felt like a place to start from and a place to keep coming back to. And interestingly for me, when I began that practice, I chose the word receive the first time I did the practice. And I kept choosing that word. And it was funny because it almost became a joke in my circle of friends. And it was simply that I was so fascinated that the longer I spent time working with this word, the more I understood about it and the more I realized what I didn't understand about it for myself. So this word receive and what it would presence for me every time that I focused on it. And of course, when we start focusing on something, we notice it starts showing up all around us, right? People use it more in front with us. We might see it in our books. We might see it in our writings.
Well, like the red car, Abraham Hicks always talks about, if you think of a red car, then all day long you're going to see the red car. So that's how receive came upon you. And I like how you put that it's a practice. And, and I love how you put that, because practice to me is just another tool that you've used. And I know that receive, we've come through receive for you. And I know when you left USM, you didn't even know you were doing it under, maybe you did, I don't know, but you were Explorer when you left USM, that we talked a lot about for, I don't know, probably a year, right? That you wanted to do, that was a word that was really important to you. And, in getting ready for this, I went back to this book because I hadn't read it for several years, but this book has been utilized in corporations across the United States, probably across the world. I just don't know that. But And also in like the University of Georgia football team, Mark Richt brought these guys in to use it for the University of Georgia football team so that they could be more cohesive as a sports group and as a football team and as, you know, as a team. So a lot of corporations use this, and it basically goes off. One of the things I wrote down to talk about was the power of one word and how that impacts. They talk about all 6 dimensions of your life: the mental, the physical, the emotional, relational, spiritual, and financial. And just like what you said, that one word throughout the year creates clarity, power, a life change. Because I like how you said when you were talking that what that word meant and what that word, that you didn't know that word meant for you and what that brought into you. And I loved how you said that. And of course, I'm going to call it my practice, because it is a practice. I'm not sure if we have it as one of our tools on our, maybe we do on, because we have so many and we just could put so many on the website. But anyway, I want to get into this and probably a little bit of short of a podcast on it, because it's, you know, our new words just came in January the 1st of this year for 2020. And that's something we're living into. And I know that will become more rewarding and more exciting and more revealing as we move through it. You know, last year my word was faith, which there was, if you would have told me my word would have been faith last year, I would have told you were lying to me. But that was such an interesting word, because I had the word faith basically chained to the word Christianity, right? Like, when I say chained to the word, I had it more in a religious context, in the sense of faith in God only. And one of the things that word revealed for me was faith in a lot of things besides, mainly for myself, besides God. I learned how to have faith in me. So it, you know, with having some big lessons last year, I really learned that, like, I really could change. And really, and one of the things was like anger for me last year, like being in anger and feeling that space in between me and something, me and traffic, or me and another person, or me and another event, or me and something that happened at work. I really learned to have faith in me, that I don't have to fill that space with anger. I can choose a lot of different, better, more productive for me emotions. So I really learned to have faith in me through that process. And I really took it out of just faith in one entity, and learned how to apply faith in a lot of different areas of my life that I was never really open to. So that was really exciting to me. I even went online and had it drawn up in a really cool way so that I had it visually around my house. I had one in my bathroom and I had one in my dining living room area. So when I walked by, this visual, I'm a really visual person. So there was this, it was on an acrylic stand and it was very cool. It matched my decor, of course. And I loved it. I walked by and I saw it. I had it as a screensaver for a little while. And then I went back to it, I don't know, 7 or 8 months later. So it was an interesting concept. So that, it really does, like you said, lend to teaching you what you don't know about that word, or what you're not yet open to about that word. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what your word, how that God inspired, soul inspired word came to you, and where we're going with our word in 2020, because I'm sure we're going to be using it in our languaging a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just to preface my word and how I was thinking about it as you were talking, I was thinking when I first started using this idea of a word of the year, particularly that word receive, I remember it was in a context of transitioning from one year to the other in my business and wanting to create more money and more clients. And that word receive, the initial intent for that word was in that financial, business, maybe we'll say relational domain. what then became interesting was how it then got applied to all these areas. So I think about it now for me a little bit like this idea of putting different colored glasses on. You know, they have those like EMF protecting glasses that people are wearing now, and they're a bit like pinkish, yellowish. And when you literally put them on, like you see differently, right? Colors change. And, you know, or we used to have that, you know, seeing the world with rose colored glasses. I sort of like look at it like I'm going to put on, then it was my receiving glasses. And I use the word receive, receiving, receptivity, reception, like even changing the word in its forms was like just changing the lenses on those glasses just a tiny bit. So this year for me, my word is vitality, and I'm already playing a little bit with different versions of that word as I was looking it up in the dictionary. Uh, and it's really interesting because in the past, I didn't do as much research on my word as I did this year, maybe because we were going to talk about it and I got a little curious and I want to be prepared today. But one of the things that I was really surprised about is that one of the definitions of vitality is the power of enduring. And I thought,
Wow,
that's interesting. Like I never would have thought about, and I put in parentheses pain question mark or discomfort question mark, because for me, I think this word vitality, vibrance, it speaks to me so much this year because having turned 50 in 2019 and really feeling like this is a turning point for me in making some big changes, but really like it's not about the changes so much. It's that the experience I've been having in my life up until now, as beautiful and wonderful and challenging and everything as it's been, has always felt a bit, I don't want to say less than, but like something's been a little missing. And I think what I'm trying to capture with this word is having a fuller experience in my life of all aspects, those 6 aspects you're talking about. And, you know, when we talk about abundance, for example, it doesn't mean I have $1 million in the bank, right? If we're talking about health, it doesn't mean this idea of perfect health that somebody's taken off a shelf and, you know, put on you. It's more the context again. If I were to see my life with these pink glasses that spoke vitality to me, how would I experience my life on a daily basis? And that for me is the inquiry, not to sort of snap my fingers and expect my life is going to look different today or tomorrow or the next. And coming from a place of results orientation and goal driven orientation, it's more, how do I want to experience it moment to moment as I'm living it? And that feels very vital to me. Another version of that word. So that's where I'm going with that at this point.
Well, I love it because as I'm looking at you on our link, our Zoom link, like it's so funny to me because like just your face alone, I know this has been going on for the last what, like 2 weeks or so. Like you just have this glow about you. You know, you do have this vitality. It's crazy. I mean, I could snapshot you. I could take a picture of you, what I'm seeing right now, and then take a picture of what I had, because you know how I'll take pictures of you. Like, I'll just snap a picture and
in your free time.
Yeah, well, no, just so we're on Zoom. But you've changed just in, and I know that'll be talked about on the Sacred Shift and how you're changing what you're ingesting and how you're fueling your body and what you're doing for, energy and strength. That's a whole other podcast, and that's the Sacred Shift. But you just even look more vitalis. I don't think that's a word. But one of the things I'm curious about, and I know a little bit how you did last year, but how do you plan for your practice? How do you plan to keep that word in the forefront of your days? I know you have your little, that's a cute way to say it, with your little vitality glasses. And I have that visual so beautifully ingrained in my head. Like, we should get Julie to do a little visual on us about with your vitality glasses on. But how do you plan to bring that into your hour to hour, day to day when the crap hits the fan kind of? And I know we're early, only a couple of days into the new year, but any thoughts on that?
I would say there isn't a practice that I do regularly, or there's not a systematic way. I was looking at making a poster yesterday. So for sure, having those visible cues, I
Right.
think is really important. I don't tend to hang up a lot of things like that in my house, but I do have a vision board that I created for this year, which I'm thinking, I don't think it has that word on it as I look. Actually, I can take it over here. We can look at it together as we're talking.
Oh, I love it.
But certainly, there is light, there is relationship, bold, on a mission. I see light show up a couple of times in here. So definitely visual cues. I also always had this idea. Now that I say it, Kathy's probably going to go make it happen for me, to have a keychain so that I have that like physically with me, and I do think little reminders like that
Right.
you don't have to think about. But yesterday it was interesting. I don't know what it was that I was doing, but I was in the process of doing or listening to something, and I wrote down my values. I have 5 core values, and I find that I will often doodle my core values and just kind of write them. And somebody must have been talking about it, and it reminded me to remind myself. And just writing them down or using them in a daily practice of writing, talking about it with people. I mean, you and I are talking about our words on a daily basis, and we're incorporating them into our work, we're incorporating them into our personal life. So I would say those are some of the ways that I work with the word, but it often is sort of just organic. And I know I will use like a very practical example of like going to the grocery store right now. And so on the physical level, like you mentioned, having changed routines around as exercising and moving and food and drink, that I walk into the supermarket and I ask myself that question, what is going to
Oh,
create vitality? When I'm thinking about my weekend and I'm thinking, what actions am I going to be, what things am I going to be planning? What actions am I going to be taking for the weekend? And I think, like, is this going to bring vitality?
well, I like how you walk into a grocery store. That's very cool to me because, especially on several levels, in the sense of like that is so conscious. Like I've never thought about going into a grocery store and before maybe like when you're grabbing your buggy and starting to drag that around to start collecting what you're there to get, that you think about, especially vitality in a grocery store, right? I love that. Like I could just take that and run with that. So I'm going to implement in that in mind because that's lovely in the sense of, I mean, I like your word. Like I could, yeah, I'm gonna get you a keychain, a t-shirt. I'm gonna get all that, a mug, got the t-shirt, right. So I love that in the sense of, I'm so excited to see where that goes for 2020. I mean, we are just a few days in and like, I mean, it just floors my skull in the sense of how much we have shifted in the sense of vitality. I know on Marco Polo yesterday, I'm watching you and you're like, I just got out of a yoga class. And I'm like, what? That's awesome. She hasn't done that. I know you'll talk about that, but I just love that. Like you're such a breath of fresh air for me in the sense of, the sense of doing it and experiencing it. And you're also being while you're doing. And I think that is, I mean, that's just amazing to me. It really is like, if you have listeners, if you have a friend or a soul sister or whoever, get them to do this with you because I know when we use Marco Polo just to talk to each other throughout the day because our schedules are so different and I'll be in the OR, Blenda's with clients, and we'll use that to pop in and say hey to each other and kind of check in. And that's like my lifeline, because I feel like I'm with you throughout the day. It's like having my best friend and right with me on my little phone, that I can, if you're going through a rough time, or if you're having a great day, then I can really, rough time, I can hold space for you and say a prayer for you, and great day, I can take that energy and take that with me and run with it, because I have it with me, because I always have my phone with me. So that's
Mm.
something I would encourage our listeners to do, is to find that friend and to have that aspect of something, because it really, Marco Polo is really immediate, and it really, really does help me be in your daily walk with this. So like, I'm holding space for you in this sense of vitality, because it's almost like I'm getting secondhand vitality just from being around you with your word. And so I'm getting, like, instead of secondhand smoke, I'm getting secondhand vitality from you. So I'm like that's my secondary word, because I'm so involved with that with you, and so holding space, that it comes upon me. So it's
Hmm.
like I'm getting a double word, like I'm getting a double whammy. So it's who doesn't want more vitality? So
And
that's
I love that, because I think that that also brings out another aspect of why we do this even to begin with. Like, it's not
right.
just about us. When we become more intentional with our thought and our words and our actions and our energy, it has impact. And when we choose a word for the year, whatever the word is, but we choose to put that kind of energy and intention and focus on that word, it creates something. And it's almost like it's this container again. Like, we're always talking about, I'm always talking about containers. It holds you in this container. And when you start sort of spilling out of the container into non-aligned thought and action, because it's not in accordance with this word, you can feel it, and people can feel it too. And this other point that you bring up about having accountability partners, you were asking earlier, like, that is, having said my word 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was that I first started doing this practice, in a group of 15 women who knew what it was, who I met with on a weekly basis, like, it was really great, because we could have that kind of dialogue of, like, where are you with that? What are you discovering? What are you noticing? And when we start getting off track and when out of alignment, like, that's an opportunity for learning as well. And having accountability partners help us get back on track, because that's the whole idea, is like, we're going to be working with this, and we're going to see it from every possible angle we can this year, and really use it for our highest good. So tell us about yours.
and
Let's hear
let it
about yours this year.
and let it use us,
Mm.
right? My word was going to be and, because how, I forget which podcast we were talking about, where I was like, but, and then it was tripping me up in every sentence. I was like, but, I mean, and, but, I mean, and. And I thought, I'm going to have, that's going to be like, be, and felt like more of an opening to me instead of the but, because it, of course, negates, like we talked about, everything that comes before it. So I thought, I'll take and, but that was just, I think that was more my mind speaking. And it came upon me that transform, which is one of our core words. This is why I want to go back to one point. This is why I love you. You're the only soul on this planet that I know doodles your core mission. This is one of the reasons I love you. I was like, oh my God, I love that. She just sits around and doodle. Some people draw smiley faces or daisies, and you doodle your core mission. Oh, love that. But anyway, this is one of our core missions on our podcast, on Take a Shift podcast, is ignite, listen, ignite, and then transform. And it's so funny, because I was like, I've always been scared of transform in the sense of a physicalness. And this is really, like, I came into this year with transform not being from a spiritual aspect, because I'm constantly shifting and transforming in that as I open to more things, or as I have more experiences. I'm always about transforming financially for a higher aspect, but that wasn't even really my focus at all. Transform was focused specifically at my physicality, at my health, really. So, yes, I want to lose weight. Yes, I want to lose a lot of weight. However, the biggest aspect of this is my health aspect of being in physical form. Specifically blood pressure, which I'm tracking every day, which I have I'm going to back to put banners on everything so it's easy to see. I send Belinda a little shot of my blood. She knows my blood pressure every day. Belinda knows this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get a aspect of physical transformation, health transformation. And like we were talking about, that is going to open up to so many other of the five aspects of transformation as it has. I mean, my gosh, in the last 45 days, we've transformed so many things. But this really specifically is coming into 2020 for a transformation of health, transformation of physical being, like in my weight, how I am in the world. I had a speaker's agent tell me, yes, you may be a bigger person, but your presence on stage, it's perfect. Well, it may be perfect on stage in front of however many thousands of people, because things in the mirror may appear smaller, but it's not how I want to show up, right? Like, I want to be able to literally bend over and tie my shoes without losing my tidal volumes, without losing my breath. So I want my blood pressure to be normal. I don't want to go on any blood pressure meds. I want it to be normal with what I'm bringing into my body as food and fuel. So Transform really has come into 2020 with me from the pure aspect of health transformation and physical transformation. And we will see how all it filters and has that collateral flow into all the other aspects of the five elements of my life. And I'm totally open to that. And I think I wrote you a text yesterday or last night when I was laid in bed about transformation. And in the last 7 days, I have transformed a 54-year habit of what I have been eating for food, for comfort, for pleasure, and for fuel to fuel my body. So they're transformed a 54-year habit. In the last 7 days, I have transformed a 33-year-old Coke Zero or soda habit. I haven't been drinking Coke Zero. I think I started out with like Tab when I was 12 or something, or 10. My grandfather always had Tab and Metrical cookies. And so I've always been around sodas as long as I can remember. And then it went to like Diet Pepsi, and then it went to Diet Coke, and then Coke Zero. So I haven't had a soda in 7 days, and I can tell you I don't miss it right now. And I have transformed that aspect of where I don't have to have a Coke Zero can in my hand the minute my feet hit the floor in the morning. And that's been amazing. And I just got through working 48 hours in like 5 days. Feel great. Like, my body feels good. Like, my feet weren't so sore, my hands weren't so achy. So I am sitting under a transformation. And if I just had, 7, 8 days of it, like, I can't wait to see what 2020 brings in the sense of this health transformation and this physical transformation. And of course, that leads into our other aspect of what we're doing on the sacred shift, because, you know, I've been heavy my whole entire life, and this is really what I'm bringing in for 2020 for me, in addition to all the other aspects I'm transforming in. So I think that is a more specific word than and for me, because it really lasers in to health transformation and physical transformation. So that's really my impetus and my aspect and my word for 2020. So there you have it. And it's easy because it's one of our core values for Take a Shift. So I see it everywhere. It's all, I even have it on my Kleenex box, transform. So yes, you'll get keychains, you'll get t-shirts, mugs.
Well, and I love you talking about it in the way that you did, your word, because it also makes me think that, so much of what we've been talking about, I think, in this podcast has been how we can have a different experience of ourselves, with ourselves, of our lives, and how literally just shifting just ever so slightly. I mean, we haven't been talking about major shifts, though today we are talking about some major life-changing kind of shifts that we're taking, because we're choosing different patterns or different practices, right? Choosing to stop a 33-year habit to diet soda is a big one, right? But most of the shifts we've been talking about have been very subtle, right? And even with those very subtle shifts, just declaring a word, right? It's just declaring a word. We're not talking about going out and, starting to train to run a marathon and you need to go run 10 miles a day kind of thing, right? It's choosing a word. And then look at what's happened from that. In the simple choosing of, I'm going to focus on this one word, then all of a sudden there's just this unfolding that happens from that choice. And I think that for me is like the key. We talk about choice a lot. We'll probably have a podcast coming up at some point simply just around that word, choice and choosing. But there's so much power in choosing a word and then taking a couple small steps to have that word be visibly, mentally, emotionally, physically present in our lives, and then seeing what happens, right? And you talked earlier, it's like getting curious about what I think that word is going to bring to me and support me in, and getting curious in the areas that I haven't even considered that could also be emboldened and inspired by this word.
Right. Exactly. Well, and you say simple, and my mind went right to the aspect of, well, holy crap, this wasn't simple. And I guess I need to say what I've done health wise. And I'm looking at my phone right now. My pressure on January 1st was 168 over 104. My pressure yesterday, because I've taken my blood pressure every day, is 120 over 84. So that was 6 days. Now, I'll tell you, there was no simple transformation to get that pressure to that point, in the sense of, I'm out of stroke range now. So I've still got some diastolic dysfunction going on. And I know with weight loss and what I'm doing, but, I have chosen to take on a plant-based diet with no sugar, no oil, and no salt. Now that's radical. No, that's not simple. That's radical. In January the 1st, I walked into my kitchen and couldn't use probably 92 to 94% of everything in my kitchen. So I'd already prepared for that, but like I've had to go through my pantries, my refrigerator, everything to get ready for a plant-based, no salt, no oil, no sugar way of eating. And we talk about in the Sacred Shift about how that felt like deprivation a lot in the beginning, on the first, when we were first talking about it. And now it just, just a week into it, feels like such a powerful I'm choosing. Like I have shifted in the sense of just how I see how I'm choosing to eat to save my life, to save my blood pressure, to transform my health. So that is, it was just a simple word with a powerful intention. And it's driving everything I do on a daily basis. Like even like you talk about coming into a grocery store and having that consciousness of seeking vitality within the four walls of a grocery store that you're walking into, and what you'll put in your cart. And I look at my plate now and I have that sense of this food that I'm going to bring into my body is transforming my blood pressure. Like, that's how I have this conversation with my food. That sounds weird, but okay, let it sound weird. I don't really care. My blood pressure speaks the truth. So, like, I really have this, and of course, people call that conscious eating, right? Like, there's programs around that, Janine Roth, and I'm sure many more. But I have this consciousness that I look at my food and I know what's on that plate is so good for me, so good for my vessels. Dr. Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic talks about when he eats his oats, he knows that he's taking care of the endothelial lining of his vessels. And so I look at my plate and I see all this color, and I know this is going to transform my blood pressure and the way I'm going to feel in my body, because I'm going to have more energy, and it's going to transform in the end the physical way that I walk around in this world, because it's going to allow me to shed some of this heaviness that I've been carrying around. So it is simple, but it moves at the speed of light. You know, I've just came off of Weight Watchers. I just came off of keto last year. Like I've done both of those several times last year. Just like those things, just for whatever reason, and I wouldn't give up my soda habit last year. Like, that was one thing I was not going to give up. And coming into 2020, I was like, if I really want this, I'm going to have to really go for it. I know how much a soda has 40 milligrams of sodium in one can. And I was getting, almost 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium in our 1,600 milligram daily allowance just in soda. So that wasn't counting what I was shaking. And so it's just crazy. It's just totally crazy. But, my blood pressure's speaking the truth. And that's what's in the driver's seat right now of this bus, in the sense of, like, I take care of stroke patients every week, in the middle of a stroke. And I don't want to be one of those patients. So what's on my plate is going to help me negate that as much as I have control of. There are other things into play, but as much as I have control of. So I'm really excited about where this will take us. We'll see. I feel like my word is transform, and then I get secondary vitality. So, mine's a double bonus. So I'm excited about it. I think we're done here.
I think we're done for the day. So take that little step. If we leave you with one thing today, take that little step. It's not always easy to live it. Maybe that's the distinction we need to make. It's not always going to be easy what that word is going to be asking of us as we engage with it over the year, but that taking that step is simple. Choose a word that resonates for you. Sit with it, maybe meditate on it, consider it, write a few words down, maybe sit with it for another day or two, see what feels most present for you, and then choose it and keep choosing it over and over and over again during this year. And we'd love to hear your thoughts as you're working with your word. So you can find us now live as of yesterday at takeashiftnow.com. And we love to hear from listeners. And we wish you a beautiful 2020.
Yes.
Much love, gratitude for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one. Keep shifting.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Take a Shift, a part of Mental Health News Radio Network. We are so grateful for your time and presence. Always remember, you're just one shift away from a better feeling day in your life. Until next time, remember to listen, ignite, and transform. Much love from us to you.